Hello, I'm Marc. I'm the host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have Dale Smith, the channel director for EMEA of Juniper Networks, in the studio. In fact, Dale, I believe you come from either the Tube or from InfoSec yourself this morning.
Indeed, yes. A couple of hours supporting Infinigate and a lot of the sort of work they're doing around Juniper. So great to be there and great to be here as well.
First day in InfoSec today.
It is first day.
Do you think it'll be busy this time, this event?
Well, I missed last year. The year before was really busy, but it was early morning. I was an early riser, so it was building up nicely. But the Infinigate stand had a lot of attention. We've got the VW van on there, Juniper branded, which they're going to take on tour for us around the UK. So that was driving a lot of attention.
In fact, I will start with you there, Dale. What do you think is the benefit of doing these sort of big events? Do you know, when something like for Juniper, is it for brand? Is it for getting POCs? Is it getting for
There's
staff?
There's a lot of reasons.
Right.
Brand is definitely key, right? Key to make sure that you are seen as front of mind in terms of our partners and everything we're trying to achieve. But we're also trying to drive different messaging. The industry changes so quickly over 6-12 months. There's always something new to talk about. And these events are just a great way to get to, customers, to partners, and be there en masse. So, yeah, we're always happy to support our partners.
Now, Dale, when I get someone in the studio, I always start looking at their LinkedIn profile and go back to the beginning. And I noticed you started in reseller land at CDW. So take the listeners back. Why did you do that?
Why did I do that? It was a first job, right? Why wouldn't I do that? Bit of a baptism of fire, to be honest, Mark. I came from a sort of college background into technology. And it was a little bit of an eyes wide open sort of scenario because it was the late 90s, showing my age now, you can do the maths. But yeah, it was just before the sort of Y2K, if you remember that.
Yeah.
It was the .com sort of bubble and everything's sort of going really energized and really sort of gangbusters. So it was a great time. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed, cold calling. I enjoyed flicking through the yellow pages.
You were literally doing yellow pages?
Oh, completely. Or maybe even what's the 192 service, the
Thompson Local, is it?
No, directory inquiries, where you say, I need this company, I need the number, it costs you like £5 a time. It was great, yeah. So on the front line, it was great times. But yeah, I remember, Y2K was my first big thing, if you like. I was there to type out, typing, printing out and posting letters to our customers, just to advise around Y2K, what could happen. Will all the computers fail over? Will your microwave work? Will your computer turn on? And that they were, there to provide a service, if anything were to go wrong. And I remember sort of printing 400-500 of these things out thinking, is the world really going to stop? When it ticks over to the millennium. And it was a case of, speaking to one of the sales guys, because I wasn't really a big sales guy there. I said, look, what is this really going to mean? And he said, this is going to be amazing. He said, this is going to be something I can buy a new car off, go on an extra holiday on, and build an extension from, because we're expecting a lot of work, consultancy and services around fixing stuff. And obviously, Y2K didn't really happen. These guys were all thinking they'd be upgrading their Porsches and their sort of their cars and everything, but it never quite did happen. So thank goodness for the internet and the .com boom to keep us going.
After you left CDW, where did you go?
Well, I stayed in reseller land actually a little bit, but I then found myself in a natural home of distribution, which I started out in a company called Sphinx. Yeah. For those that know Sphinx back in the day, which became Arrow. And it was there I sort of first came in across Juniper and some of the great vendors like Checkpoint and Trend Micro and a few others. But distribution came in my home very quickly for quite a long time.
Now, normally when someone starts in a reseller, they don't really go into distribution. They almost see it, dare I say, as a bit of a backward step going into distribution. Why did you go into distribution when you'd already worked at a large partner?
Maybe I was terrible. Maybe I wasn't very good at that cold calling. It's a good question, to be fair. Do you know what? The opportunity was a good one to get into. And I quickly found just where the energy was in the industry. Distribution back in the early 2000s now was just a hotbed of investment, fast-paced energy, creativity, innovation. And that kind of leans into my strengths a lot. I'm innovative, I'm creative, I'm energized. And I just felt a natural place there.
Did you enjoy it?
Really? I mean, I think the number of years was probably 12 in total. So did I enjoy it? Absolutely. Working with some great vendors, which then evolved into cyber and startups, linking back into InfoSec, where there's a plethora of them exhibiting today. But working with startup cyber is just a different world, a different lesson in terms of how to work at pace with creativity and, making mistakes along the way, but just giving it a go to do something different and to carve a new path for this company, which distribution is there to do for these younger cybersecurity players.
Your skills that you needed to be successful in a VAR, was there any sort of transition into going to the distribution? Because for the listeners out there, are distributors actually cold calling, or they're more enticing partners to sort of speak to them? So is there transferable skills, or was it something completely different for you?
It is different. You're not cold calling. No. There is a difference in terms of what you're doing, but essentially there are some transferable skills. Are you creative? Are you a strategist? Are you innovative? Are you driven to succeed? Are you driven to make a difference and to actually look at a partner or a vendor and a strategy and say, I can do something different. I can carve a path. Now, for a salesperson, they're more dollar oriented, right? They want to do the deal, and I get that. So there is a lot of differences there, but you've got to be really, really focused on winning the bigger goal, and that is driving the vendor plan, the corporate plan, and being a key part of that.
Everyone talks about value in distribution. What does that actually mean to you, Dale? When you were in distribution, how could you actually articulate that and get it over the message that you were actually getting value for your partners and for your vendors?
I think every disty will have different levels of value, first and foremost, right? There'll be some disties that offer a sort of level of value here and some which are super VADs and the terms which we used to use. The important thing is that you listen to the vendor, understand what they need in the market, right? And depending on where that vendor is in their journey, their maturity in the market of the channel ecosystem, there'll be different levels of what they need as value. But I think it's important you come back to the point of what are the 2 or 3 things that are key to their plans of success that you can drive into. And that is true value. It's not trying to be jack of all trades. It really is being super focused and saying, what are the 2 or 3 things that are going to make a difference to that vendor's business? And that means listening. That means really trying to delve into what's unique for them. Because they'll all be on different journeys of where their investment models are, where their channel ecosystems are, what their goals are in terms of buyouts or M&As. You've got to tap into that. That's the secret.
And for the listeners out there, what could be an example of the 2 or 3 things that they could be trying to drive? Because you said it could be different for different vendors. So what sort of conversations are you having with them?
The consistency is, new partners, obviously, right?
New partner acquisition.
New partner acquisition. So having an aggressive view of, is it MSP? Is it VAR? Is it GSI? What does the ecosystem need to look like? And where can distribution add that value in terms of those sort of, new reseller sort of acquisitions? Then it's a case of, right, okay, we can get the logos. How do we then generate the pipeline? How do we then bring marketing and the sort of full sort of value, as you say, to drive pipe, SA, POCs, demos, events, and market momentum? That's the value that they're looking for. And I've been fortunate, to work for Arrow and Exclusive, and they drive some great value here.
How do they do it? So when you mentioned that you get a few new partners on board, the acquisitions there, you've signed some new partners up. How do you then drive the message? How do you then get POCs and marketing to all sort of collate together and be effective? Because there's one just thing signing up, but then it doesn't mean you're getting revenue from them, does it?
It doesn't. And this is where the creativity and also the relationship comes in place. Right. Creativity means working as one team, the sales and the marketing team, understanding what are the things we're going to do to drive that stickiness. What are the investment models? What are the demo POCs, events that we can roll out over a 3, 6, 9 month period and attack, every partner to drive that stickiness with? And the partners that we work with are often just brought in on a trust basis that if we do this together, we go on the journey together and we win together.
You're a good person to ask this, Dale, because
really?
Yeah, because you've worked for a couple of big names in distribution.
Okay.
What do you think separates a top distributor from an average distributor? Is it people? Is it process? What's the difference?
It's a good question. People are at the heart of that, without question. Without the people, it's very hard to win. Processes, stock, finance, all these nice things are important, but without the right people, leading, without the right people working, you're never going to succeed. That's the difference.
How would you pick a distributor in the market if you were going to a new vendor tomorrow and they said, actually, we want to get this product out to the UK, without saying our sponsor, obviously, you can just talk holistically and generally.
Yes.
How would you pick distribution X as your partner?
Yeah, it depends on the vendor and their needs, but generally speaking, you look at the distribution landscape and say, look, what is your reach? What is your track record? Always go to the proof points. It's a little bit like Juniper, which I'll come on to later when we talk about AI. How do you get beyond the marketing slides of what we can say that we can achieve together, but look at history? What does that show us in terms of proof points that you have delivered? And how does that sort of marry to my sort of requirements that I can say, you've done that before, let's do it again?
Let's talk about Juniper, because you made the jump out of distribution into vendorland. How did it happen? Why did that come up?
Juniper, a great opportunity. I'm going to be meeting my old boss at InfoSec, actually, who hired me, Rob Neal, give him a shout out. Yeah, look, this was 7 years ago now, and it's been a hell of a journey. I came in before the whole AI mist sort of story, which I'm sure we'll get on to later. And I came in to sort of work in the channel team and to do similar sort of activities and sort of similar sort of strategies that we did in distribution. I think what Rob saw and Juniper saw in myself was somebody who's driven a sort of EMEA strategy with partners, vendors like Palo Alto, with FireEyes, Carbon Blacks, these startups, these ones who needed to sort of, really go on a hyper sort of journey in terms of scale. And they saw a lot of those qualities. And I looked at Juniper and said, you could use a lot of those qualities because you're going on a big journey yourself. And it was exciting to look at that and to be a part of that. And, myself and the team, we've been on an incredible journey at Juniper, which we're very proud of.
Do you see it as an advantage of coming from a distribution background, then going to work for a vendor? Where you do?
Yeah, I might have answered that super quick, but genuinely, I think it's an incredible grounding in terms of understanding the market, getting through the whole channel ecosystems of GSIs, VARs, MSPs, born in the clouds, all the variations of the channel ecosystem, and having a real good understanding of what is needed. I think it's incredibly, advantageous to somebody like myself.
Because there's lots of people out in the channel, early career people that come up and think, I want to go and work for this vendor. I want to go straight into it. Would you say that they're at a slight disadvantage? Because you've actually worked very classic background, actually worked at a VAR, top 10 VAR. You've worked at 2 very big distributors. Do you see that as a route that people should go? They should go and get a grounding in either distribution and VAR before they go to a vendor?
I don't think there is a you must do. I think there are always different ways for everybody, but it is definitely very advantageous. I feel very fortunate. I worked for some incredibly good companies that gave me good education, good amount of rope to go and learn and make mistakes, and and to still survive the day, if you like, and to build up my foundation. So I feel incredibly privileged that I worked in that ecosystem. One thing I do look at when it comes to success in the industry is that my daughter, she's 18. She may well follow the footsteps, if you like, at some point. And I always say to her, start not at the bottom, but get cold calling. Learn the industry. Doesn't matter where, partner, distribution, that's for you to decide. But learn the industry step by step, because this is a complex world that we operate in, okay? And there's a lot of great stuff out there, but don't try and fast track it. Try and learn the basics first.
It's great advice. My son is I'm trying to get my son a job actually at the moment. He's 18.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got him a few interviews at the moment, and I actually said to him exactly the same. So look, you're going to go in 5 days a week, go in cold calling, learn the industry, get all the knocks and rejection,
Absolutely.
And then take your time.
Builds character as well.
It does.
It really does, because you need some broad shoulders in this industry, right?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of knocks coming down the road.
Absolutely, Dale. Absolutely. Let's talk present day.
Yes.
Channel director for EMEA.
Uh-huh.
What is your strategy for Juniper? How are you actually implementing it today in 2025?
The strategy is to grow at a level beyond what we've ever seen before. Okay, so we've just got this incredible opportunity ahead of us. I'm not talking future state now. I'm talking what we've been doing this year and the last few years. we've been growing at such a rate that the channel strategy is built around creating the world's greatest partner ecosystem. And the reason we can do that, Marc, is quite frankly because of the technology, right? The technology that we are fortunate enough to have at our disposal means that we can go out there with an aggressive strategy around growth, a fantastic collaborative story for our partners to buy into, and that we can win together. So in terms of how we're sort of performing, we're super happy with our partners. We're super happy with the trajectory of the future, but there's just a lot of hard work ahead of us because this industry is changing at light speed. Okay, we obviously mean AI and how that's transforming everything that we're doing, day-to-day lives, the industry that we work in. Juniper's at the absolute forefront of that from a networking, data center, security point of view, and we're really proud of that. And we've got a lot of hard work ahead of us, but we believe we can succeed.
When you've got a best-of-breed technology, like you said,
yeah,
does it make it a lot easier to build an ecosystem that can do accelerated growth? I.e., does the technology sell itself where you can think, do you know what, you should be partner of us because it's a great technology? Or is there lots of other wheels behind them?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot behind. It's not easy, let's be honest, right? It's great that we've got the tech, but there are a few other things that you've got to build out in the channel sort of playbook.
Like what?
You've got to really build out the ecosystem. You've got to come back to people within Juniper. People in terms of training around the technology, taking Juniper on a journey from what we were 10 years ago. We were still a service provider oriented organization. We then went maybe 6 or 7 years ago into the enterprise, for the first time. And since then, Marc, we've been on a journey of building out a new channel, working on how to develop people to go into this new enterprise go-to-market, and working with new partners on how to position our new technology and what it means to them. And as well as that, building out programs, building out profitability stacks, building out, sort of campaigns and plays that our partners can buy into. All of this has been brand new to Juniper for the last 5 or 6 years. And it has taken a lot of time and a lot of steps to get us to the point that we are, enjoying some great success. The numbers are astounding. They really are in the enterprise networking space for us. We're very proud of what we're achieving. There's a lot more to do, but we're getting there.
Let's talk about that enterprise space because you mentioned you've been making moves into the enterprise space. Yeah. What is the toughest thing internally to deal with that you actually move into that enterprise space? Because it's a tough market to go and get after.
It is. I think when we brought Mist, we go back 5-6 years ago. That was our first big step into the enterprise. We had a product which we could say was enterprise ready and strategically important. But even then, it takes time. So we brought it for $400 million? It's quite a small purchase, you would say, in the grand scheme of things. You could probably argue it's worth $14 billion now with a recent valuation that we've had. But in terms of, sort of the momentum and the milestones, we really have to go to partners and say, look, we've got this technology that's best of breed. Gartner and other sort of industry analysis are validating that it is a market-leading technology. Yeah. But even then, the market momentum needs to build, okay? The market momentum needs to, build trust into the technology. The partners need to build trust in the technology and the go-to-markets. So we do a lot around programs and profitability stacks to make sure that we're building that trust step by step. But what really works, Marc, for us is just wins. When we win, it accelerates. And we work in a lot of verticals, okay? So if you take healthcare or higher ed, retail, for example, when we start winning one or two of those, it then really catches on fire because they talk to each other. They understand the proof points of what this tech really is.
I was going to say that. You mentioned there you get a win. Why is it so important? Is it for reference points? Is it case studies? Or they talk to each other? So just because you've done some win for whatever company, why does that make it more successful in other markets or other enterprise customers?
It's kind of the biggest challenge we had. I don't think it's the challenge we have now, but if I go back a few years, the biggest challenge we had, Marc, was proving that we had this superior AI technology away from just this washing of AI and the terminology, okay? So you've got to go through a POC or a deal to understand the real benefits. So the customer can say, yeah, this AI is actually real and it is saving me on truck rolls. It is saving me support ticket calls. It is saving me operational costs. It is saving me man hours. And also at the same time, it's improving the user experience. Once they understand that, And once they see it, they talk to their peers in the industry and say, this AI that Juniper has is very real. And that's where it just starts snowballing in all the verticals that we're playing in. And again, if I use HE, higher ed, as a reference point, we've won 26 higher education transformational projects over the last 2 years. It has just gone on
Great
fire.
reference points, Dale, isn't it?
Huge.
It's fantastic.
But the proof points are the proof that we need, and it's now really helping us out. And come away from the marketing AI slides to proof points, and that's how we sell.
If I was a partner,
Yeah.
and I thought, oh, actually, I really want to get into working with Juniper, and you wanted to sign me up, what would be the process of actually us partnering together and you thinking, right, I've got a new partner, they're in EMEA, they're somewhere in the market,
Yeah.
they've come to you, they want to be in your ecosystem.
Yes.
How would you onboard them? How would you actually get them selling Juniper and actually into your ecosystem and being effective, not
Yes.
just signed up?
Yeah, it's a good point. Signing partners is important, but not just ticking the box.
Yeah.
When we look at new partners and we work with our distributors to identify and to onboard, we want the right partners. Because, let's be honest, we don't have the industry's biggest, resource pool to pull on. So we've got to be quite, surgical when it comes to partner recruitment. Our distributors, Marc, they do an incredible job, right? They've got these great relationships, and we have programs, as I mentioned before, and platforms that they can buy into that accelerates their journey. Okay, so take distribution and also ourselves. We have jumpstart programs. So if we believe you're the right partner with the right strategy, the right plan, the right investment, the right, obviously, end user base that we want to go into, we can look at accelerated platform programs like Jumpstart and with our distributors to accelerate that journey from a tactical transactional one to a very strategic one that is proving to deliver on POC, pipeline, and SA.
In fact, that's a great point, because when you do get a partner, how
Yes.
do you help them move away from, maybe they've been shifting tin or shifting laptops, they want to go into security, or they want to go into more selling solutions and services. How do you help them on that journey? You mentioned Jumpstart there.
Yes.
Would that be a program you'd help them with?
It is, and the knowledge is actually the most important thing right now. And I wouldn't say it just applies to the new partners. I'd also say that this answer goes to some of our existing partners, okay? Again, we're at an inflection point in the industry around AI, which means we're shifting the whole landscape, okay? You know the industry really well. The last 20 years, the networking industry has sold great technology, Juniper included, as well as others, on networking speed, reliability, and all the usual sort of requirements, and brand. That's changing. So the knowledge needed is also changing for our existing partners and our new partners, okay? How do you sell networking now when it's AI networking? The use cases, the value proposition and the benefits are completely different to, just reliable network, just to making sure the Wi-Fi is on. Actually, what we're saying is completely different. It's an AI ops story. How do you save time in terms of your operational structure of dealing with the network? How do you improve the efficiency? How do you improve the user experience before there is an issue and using AI to your advantage? So when it comes to our partners, what we're trying to do, Marc, in terms of a lot of the programs and working with new partners and existing, is educating the salespeople on how you now sell new AI networking versus the old.
I was going to say, Dale, it's almost like education, because as you were talking, I was thinking, when you were asking those questions, how did you do it? I was thinking, no idea. I have no idea. If I was a partner, I would have no idea how to actually position what you said. So how do you actually go into a partner and actually say to them, before it might be just selling wireless products or networking and connectivity or whatever it is. Now you're actually saying AI solutions. They must be actually looking at you, like, what we're doing.
Yeah, well, you choose the right partners, and our partners are really brought into what we're doing. So we're talking the existing partners. They're really brought into it. So they're investing more dollars than ever, okay? So as a strategic indicator of the journey, from the board level down, the partners, they're buying into this AI journey. So that's a great indicator for one. So when we've got that buy-in, on the sales floor, the technical floor level, we've got to accelerate that education. And that's a journey. It's not a one-hit wonder of, show up and throw up. It's a journey of education, which involves a lot of people, a lot of collateral, a lot of incentives, like a recent one we've got called the POC Bounty, which I'll happy talk into a little bit later, and to take them on that journey. But again, for the partner, when they start seeing the benefits with their customers, that they buy into what we're saying on the AI side, and the customer sees a demo or they see a POC, the salesperson goes, wow, I'm the trusted advisor for this customer, and I've just taken innovation to a different level. And as a relationship for the reseller and the end user, that's an incredible value add, taking innovation forward.
Is there ever a point where you look at the salesperson and maybe they can't articulate that message that you've just said to me? Me as a salesperson for a reseller, I've got a relationship with an end user. You've spoken to me about your solutions. I'm thinking, sort of mind blowing. What am I actually going to be able to do that? Can I actually pull you into the relationship and say, look, can you actually educate my partner, my end user with me?
Yeah, no, we've got the resource. One of the tactics that we employ a lot, and it's great at Juniper, is our sales team, who are obviously talking to the same customers and prospects. We bring them into the partners a lot. Right. And it's a strategy we've got called One Team, One Plan, where, again, we're verticalized. So if we go to any given partner, we'll bring in the healthcare team and we'll say, look, guys, you do the education. Beyond the PAM and the channel team, who can talk generically, of course, but the vertical language needs to be very sort of focused. So we work with our sales reps to do that and to create that stickiness as well. And they can then just keep the communication going and a relationship that lasts for a long time.
You recently announced on LinkedIn that partners could earn up to $10,000.
I was wondering what he's going to say there.
For net new logo referrals. So
yes.
I was almost thinking about doing this myself. It sounds a great investment.
Yeah.
But that's a serious investment for you.
So it is.
Why have you done it? How is it working out?
The why is the greatest question, because we are winning, right? Our growth in the market, in the enterprise networking space, is unparalleled, in my opinion, based on the stats that I've seen. We are thriving. So what we want to do is go even faster. So we're investing even more over the next 6, 12, 18 months around this POC bounty. And quite simply, Mark, we're saying to our partners who are educated and they're out there working with us, go and find even more deals, okay? And we trust them to go and find the right deals. So it's net new logos in the verticals that we're collaborating on. And if they drive a POC, okay, with that net new logo, we will pay up to $10,000 to that organization and those sales and technical individuals, which is great for them to go out with Juniper and take it out with confidence. Not just the best tech, but also some of the best remuneration out there as well.
Do you know what? I feel like making a few phone calls myself. This could be a nice side hustle.
Is it all good?
Side hustle. AI's everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. What is exciting you about what Juniper are doing in the market at the moment around AI?
I think what's exciting me, recent weeks and months, is where we're gaining in the data center. We've talked a lot over the last 3-4 years over Mist. That's our campus and branch story, and it is winning, right? We've done a great deal of work there. But like all things, when they're working so well, you kind of spin up the next thing. And over the last 12 months, Mark, we've been spinning up our go-to-market around data center. And this, for me, is the next big opportunity for the industry, okay? So we talk about AI for networking and also networking for AI. If you imagine, Mark, you've got all of the use cases around the data center where, the big names, right? And we talk a lot about GPUs and we talk a lot about, how the industry is changing around AI. But if you consider for a second how many GPUs it would take to operate an effective cluster that is going to deliver on the sort of learning and the sort of AI that's needed to operate any given sort of large enterprise or whatever the sort of use case is, that's going to run on a pretty big network, okay? That's going to require a level of automation, and it's going to require a level of technology to help with the AI ops story we spoke about earlier on the campus and branch in the data center. So those same use cases, that same technology, that mystification of the data center is what is really exciting me right now. And from a market point of view, when I look at it as a broader lens, I don't think there's anybody out there that's doing what Juniper can do on AI. I really don't. Campus and branch and data center.
Sounds exciting, Dal.
Yeah.
Sounds exciting. Sounds like you're in a good place.
I think so.
Let's talk about present day and how we're evolving. The channel now, in the next couple of years, with the evolvement of AI and other technology that's coming out there, not just Juniper, but other technology in general, where do you see distribution going for it? Because as vendors get more au fait with actually maybe going through marketplaces, will distribution now suffer, or will they have to sort of change tact a bit? So in the next couple of years, where do you see the market going?
The market is, without question, Mark, going to change a lot. But then again, that's always been the case with the industry, and the industry's always evolved. Whether you're a partner, distributor, or vendor, we always evolve, and we kind of, go to where the opportunity is. So there will be change. There's no doubt. I see a huge role for distribution.
You do?
Huge role. In this world of AI, and things like marketplaces play a great part. The hyperscalers, they're all sort of interlinking, and that it's coming together very nicely. But when I look at it from a Juniper point of view and this industry, we go back to data center and AI. That for me is $1 trillion new market that's opening up. Let's go back to campus and branch. That's 20 billion as a TAM, right? So the $1 trillion market that's opening up on AI and the data center is just going to create mass opportunity. Now, that's amazing, but we've all got to figure out what that is and where our sort of role is in all of that. So from a partner, disti, and vendor point of view, I see there's a role for the vendor and distributors to work really well on lead generation, on how we can use AI tools in a similar way, Mark, that we use them for our customers to simplify operations. So there's a role there around the operational piece. But I also think it goes further. I think the AI tooling goes into the marketing world as well. So you could almost see a world with our distributors and our vendors and partner ecosystems where you have these AI agents, which allows the limited resources that we all have to go further, faster, into new verticals, into new domains, quicker than we've ever done through the advent of AI technology, scripting, marketing, in terms of lead generation and automating a lot of processes. I think there's a great ecosystem there, but I think the tools and the processes are going to evolve massively to help us all accelerate and seize this $1 trillion market opportunity that's creating itself.
As a channel leader,
Yes.
Dale, who needs to survive
Yeah.
in this AI world,
Yes.
what are the 3 things that you think you need to have and to adapt into this sort of market? Your own personal traits, because you mentioned 3 or 4 years ago it might be turn up at a vendor, turn up, throw a few pizzas around or whatever, is a bit of education.
Yeah.
That's gone out the window now, isn't it? So what are the 3 traits that you think you need to sort of adapt to survive in this AI market?
The first one would just be the answer I gave you there. The AI agents and the process around how you work with the channel ecosystem is a key thing that we're all trying to figure out. We don't have the answer yet, but it is certainly something we're working on. And I think a lot of the competition will be as well. I think there's got to be an openness, Mark, in all honesty, in terms of where the market shift is going and being open to change. Because if you're not open to change, then in this industry, you do get a little bit stuck in the mud, right?
Yeah.
One of the leaders at Juniper always says, it's great to get a speeding ticket, but never get a parking ticket. So just be open to the change that is coming. And it is coming. I'm glad that Juniper's at the forefront of that change. And we are kind of carving our own path. But I would say that you've just got to be open on that. Really is quite an interesting time right now.
For the end user who may be unaware of some of these changes and the technological advancements at the moment, how do you and your team and your partners keep ahead of what customers actually want? How do you actually stay ahead of what they actually need?
I think when it comes to customers and the verticals, we're on a learning journey together.
Right.
What are the benefits of AI? We know some of them right now, the use cases around AI ops and user experience, but there are some use cases, Mark, that we've not even found yet, and the customers still don't know right now. What I would say is take a step with confidence with the right partner, the right support system, with the right vendor into the world of AI, and you will find the benefits and you will find your own sort of way in this new world. I say be brave, take those first few steps, take them with people that you trust. Luckily at Juniper, we've been working with AI data for the last 6 years. That's credible. That's really credible. Some of the competition will be obviously playing catch up, but they don't have that pedigree. The data, is important here because when you get the benefits of AI, you need a long history of data to really make it work. Good wine's not made without good grapes, as they say. So, yeah, working with the right credible partners in the full ecosystem is super important.
The channel has changed constantly, and it's going to continue to change and evolve in the next few years.
Yes.
If there was one thing that you could change about the channel today, what would it be?
Oh, wow. One thing to change about the channel today.
Yeah. How it works. What would you change if you could?
Oh, that's a really good question. Can I take a 10-second pause and just really think that one through?
What about like deal regs? Would you change that? Everyone moans to me about deal regs. They said, oh, this partner deal reg, and then this partner said they deal reg, and they undercut it, and the vendor has to pick which one. Would you change that system? Or do you think it works?
It does work. You've got to get the health of it right, of course. The processes have to be super clear and important. But in a Juniper ecosystem, we don't really have those challenges. We're surgical on how we operate and where we operate. When we back partners, we back them all the way. Some of our competitors, Marc, have thousands of partners. We're not in that sort of world. So I guess I'm a bit more fortunate that we've got a more manageable channel, if you like.
How many partners do you deal with in EMEA?
In EMEA, 4,000, but that's on the real long tail. If I'm talking strategic, which is kind of a different sort of question, probably in the order of 500.
You see, it's not that many, is it?
It's not huge.
So you can have a close relationship with
They're
them.
the right partners with the right strategic investments, the right alignment, the right peering, the right technology labs and investments, the right go-to-markets. Don't get me wrong, Marc, there are more partners and we are recruiting. I'm here to say we are absolutely recruiting, but it is not for 1,000 more. It is for the right partners where we've got the gaps in the verticals, the gaps in the service capability, the gaps in certain other domains. So we are being very surgical in who we're working with. But yeah, more partners needed for sure, because the growth is astronomical.
And my last question, Dal, and I don't want you to sit on the fence.
Okay.
And I don't want you to say Juniper. If you were going to pick, there was a company to watch in 2025 who you think will particularly do well, and that could be a vendor, an MSP, a distributor, or a VAR, which company do you think is going to do well?
I would go with anybody that is operating in the data center domain right now. I think that is one of the biggest growth areas for this industry when it comes to AI, okay? There are lots of names in there. Juniper is absolutely one of them, so I'm sorry you are going to get that name. But
I said don't do that.
But there are more. There are more, and it's a huge market where a lot of us can survive together, okay? So watch that space with a lot of interest.
Brilliant. Dal, you've been a great guest. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Marc.